So sometimes you may be looking at a circle that has multiple different pieces cut into it, and you want to find maybe the arc measure of multiple pieces put together. And so we can actually find that with the arc addition postulate. So first we see that two arcs of the same circle are adjacent arcs when they intersect at exactly 1 point. You can add the measures of two adjacent arcs. In other words, adjacent arcs are just those arcs that are right next to each other. So for instance, if I'm looking at this picture right here, my arc AB and arc BC would be adjacent arcs, and that's because they only intersect at my point B. And so the arc addition postulate tells us that the measure of an arc formed by two adjacent arcs is the sum of the measures of the two arcs. So that means if I was wanting to find the measure of arc ABC, this would just be equal to the measure of arc AB plus the measure of arc BC. It's really similar to what we've done in the past and previous units, like the segment addition postulate and the angle addition postulate. Basically, parts of something are going to make the whole, so parts of an arc added together are going to make the full arc. So let's practice actually using this concept. So for each of these, I want to find the measure of each arc. So at first, I want to find the measure of GE. So looking here, measure of GE. So I want to find this whole measure. And so I see I have two different arcs that make this up. I see I have arc GH, so I know this is going to be equal to the measure of arc GH plus the measure of arc HE. Well, the measure of arc GH I see is 40 degrees. And the measure of arc HE is 80 degrees. So that means that the measure of arc GE is going to be 120 degrees. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Now I want to find the measure of arc GEF. So I have GEF. And so this is going to be made up in multiple pieces. I see that I have arc GH plus arc HE plus arc FE Now you could have noticed that we already found GE and just put 120 right here, but let's pretend we didn't. GH is 40, so I'll have 40 plus HE, which is 80, plus FE, which is 110. So 40 plus 80, I get 120. 120 plus 110, I get 230 degrees. Okay, now for this last one, I want to find the measure of arc GF. And so I noticed here, I actually don't have that measurement right here. So this is a minor arc, and normally we would just find it by the central angle. However, I don't actually have this angle. But what we did in part B is we found the rest of this. We found GEF. And I know that all of these angle measures need to add up to 360. So to find GF, I know that this is just going to be 360 minus the rest of those arcs. So the measure of GEF. Well, the measure of GEF we just found to be 230. So it's going to be 360 minus 230. And when I subtract those, I get 130 degrees. Okay, let's look at this next one. So number 2 says, a recent survey asked teenagers whether they would rather meet a famous musician, athlete, actor, inventor, or other person. The circle graph shows the results. Find the indicated arc measures. Okay. The first measure we want to find is arc AC. And so looking over at this picture, arc AC, I have A to C. So I know that this is going to equal the measure of AB plus the measure of BC. And so I get 29 plus 108. And when I add those two together, 29 plus 108, I get 137. Next one to find is ACD. So A, C to D. And so I see here I have 4 different parts that I'm going to add together, or 3 different parts I'm going to add together. And so this is going to be 29 plus 108 plus 83. And when I add those together, I get 220 degrees. And now go ahead and pause the video. I want you to find those last 2 measures. When you think you have it, go ahead and press play. So these are the answers that you should have gotten for the last 2. ADC, you really need to make sure you are careful with the order of those letters. ADC is really this part here, so it's going to be different from ACD. And then there are a couple different ways you could have done part D. Part D is asking for EBD, so that is almost the entire circle except for my part DE. And so you could have went ahead and added all 4 of these parts together like we did in those previous portions, or you could do like I did. I see that this is a major arc, and so all I need to do is 360 minus whatever I didn't use, so that's 61 to get that 299.